Nothing has improved my playing as much as learning a few simple triad shapes, but it took me years to understand how to use those to sound unique and fresh. So I got 8 steps that are gonna take you from not knowing a single triad at all to sounding so cool and fresh, your guitarist friends are gonna lose sleep over it. Let's go. Now, learning to play triads all over the neck sounds like a lot, but it's basically 3 shapes. Let's start A, with the root on the 10th fret of the 2nd string. That one. This is your major shape. The root, the 3rd, and the 5th. If I want to play the minor shape, the same root, the same 5th, the 3rd is flat. So instead of, I'm playing. Now if there's a root on the neck, there's an A, I can play that same major shape, minor shape. There's another A, major, minor. Now of course, if I'm on the 3rd string, because of the way the B string is tuned, this is my major shape, this is my minor shape. Now my second shape, it's called the 1st inversion because it starts with the 3rd, right? Instead of the root. So I got 3rd, 5th, and root. This is my major shape. This is my minor shape. It's a bit of a stretch, but I'm not asking you to play those so fast you sound like an 80s shredders. That's not the point. Tabarnak, fait chaud, man. Fuck. Finally, we got the 2nd inversion. Let's start with the 5th. So 5th, root, 3rd. This is my major. And of course my minor, same 5th, same root, flat 3rd. That one is the easiest to see because it's glued to my A-shaped chord, right? It's important to see how these 3 are connected, right? And major. Now before we use those to spice up our leads, I want to show you something else. Because I don't want to be stuck playing triads on 2 strings. I want to play something more vertical. We can use these same 3 shapes and expand them vertically to create arpeggios and unlock a huge part of the neck. So with that same major triad, I can expand it into the C-shaped arpeggio. If you know your cage system, you've seen this before, right? For the minor one. Now with the 1st inversion, it leads to this A-shaped chord. Right? And the A minor shaped chord. And then the 2nd inversion in major. Right? My E-shaped chord. And the E minor shaped chord. Now, when I started practicing those, I got super excited because I wanted to sound like Yngwie, and that got me kind of close, but it got boring pretty quickly because those shapes alone, they don't add anything to the chord. They play the exact same notes that are already in the chord. Now that we have a solid foundation of triad and arpeggios, it's time to make things more interesting by adding another note, the 7th. And this part is crucial to take advantage of the 8th step, so don't skip it. So for now we're going to play around the A-shaped chord. So here's the A major 7 arpeggio. And the minor 7. Now you've probably noticed that in my major chord, my 7 is right next to the root, while in my minor chord, the 7 is a whole step away from the root. These are the most common shapes that you'll see, so we're gonna stick to them. This is not a lesson about scales, that would be a whole other video. In rock, pop, and metal, we don't hear as much 7 chords. When I started playing these arpeggio shapes, it got really excited because I was hearing something new that wasn't in the chord. Now let's take a break from cramming stuff in your noggin and see if we can use what we've learned to spice up our playing a bit. Now we're playing that A-shaped C, and it sounds fine, but it's a little cheesy. You want to play something else. I had already been playing arpeggios for many years when I noticed that I could use what I already know to build chord inversions. If you know Hey Joe, you've heard this before. You remember the A-shaped arpeggio? Well, this is my chord, this is my root, this is my third. Minor, no problem. Now, because you already know arpeggio shapes, you can see these build up without even thinking about it. You're probably starting to see how learning theory stacks up on itself, right? You learn one thing, and it teaches you like 3, 5 more. Open triads are instant Eric Johnson territory. And because you already know your 2-octave arpeggios, it's super easy to build those. Because what you're doing, basically, we're in E minor. This is my E minor arpeggio. What I'm doing, instead of 1, 3, 5, I'm skipping 1. So I'm doing 1, 5, 3. You don't have to learn anything new. You just have to play with what you already know. I got my G, my A-shaped G here. It's my arpeggio. So instead of 1, 3, 5, I'm playing 1, 5 as my other third. And that's great because it's the same arpeggio, but it sounds different, right? And you can do the same with inversions too, right? This is my first inversion. Instead of 3, 5, 1, I play 1, 3, 5. It's all about being spicy and memorable, different. That good old C chord is too boring. Why not play an inversion? Right? 5, 3, 1. It's a very different feel. Most players don't learn this, so if you go there, you're gonna show it to your pals and they're gonna say, damn dude, you stepped up a notch. And listen, music is not a competition. But there's no better feeling than mentally breaking another man. You know what I'm talking about? But don't brag about it, just play it cool, say thank you. I appreciate the kind words, but deep down, you know, he's hurting and you've won. The number one thing I get asked by people that want to play lead is, how do you know what to play? And this is always guys that know some theory, scales, triads, but they can't seem to find a way to play that into something memorable. Each of these shapes that we've seen today can be used as a launch pad to kick off a lead or to resolve a phrase. Now what I just played was an E minor arpeggio that launched a scale lick over the D and the C chord, and I finally ended with the A minor arpeggio to keep a more grounded sound. One of the biggest problem people have when they're trying to learn how to play lead is they're too afraid to miss. Experiment. It doesn't matter if you miss a note. Nobody's gonna eat your lunch for that, all right? Good things happen when you're not afraid to fail. For the longest time, I could not understand how jazz player could play those cool licks, right? I thought it was just chromaticism, so whenever I would try, you know, it was awful. And one day I heard that lick. And I saw that shape, right? That major shape. And I understood that they were playing passing note. It's not random chromatic notes. It's passing note, and very, very often half a step under a chord tone. Now, I'm not a jazz player at all, but I love jazz. And being able to jazz up my rock and blues a little bit makes me extremely happy. And even if you're not into jazz, maybe you're only into metal. Instant Morty Freeman territory. You've made it to the final secret. One of my biggest struggle with arpeggios was how to make them sound interesting. I wanted to play those fast flurry notes that are typical of the sound of arpeggio playing, but I wanted to play spicy notes, not just state the chord tones. Now, unfortunately, I had to figure this out for myself, and it took 20 years. And I remember because of Sean Baxter in Guitar Techniques magazine showed us the upper fifth technique. Now, this is a whole other can of worm, but it got me thinking, because I had already thought about playing a G chord over E minor, right? The third of E minor is G. And sounded all right, but it wasn't spicy enough, because the notes of E minor are E, G, and B, and that G major arpeggio is G, B, and D. So I'm adding the 7 of E minor. That's all right. But if I'm adding my 7 in the G major 7 chord, now I'm adding F sharp. So I got 2 spicy notes. I got D and F sharp. And much further down the road, I finally thought, well, if I can play the E major 7, can I push it a bit further and play that B? That B minor 7? Because what are the notes? I got B, D, F sharp, A. So I got the 5th, the 7th, the 2nd, and the 4th of E minor. Basically all the spicy notes. And because I'm playing the B, which is the 5th of E, it's still somewhat grounded. It is very spicy, but that B, it's keeping it very grounded in the E chord. And I think you realize how freeing this is, right? Because I could already play these cool E minor arpeggio shapes over my E minor, but now I can play these G major 7 shapes and these B minor 7 shapes that I already know. I don't have to think about creating any new stuff. I'm just thinking differently and using what I already know to create new stuff. Think about everything we've seen in step 1 to 7. You can apply this to step number 8. Challenge of the week. Over a 1-chord backing track, you're gonna play steps 5, 6, and 7 using either the 5th or the 3rd chord. Example in E minor. Step 5, you go through the E minor, G, and B minor open triads and see where that leads you. Step 6, you can either lunge licks from the E minor 7, G major 7, or B minor 7 triads. In step 7, you add spicy passing notes half a step lower than your triad tones. You try that around E minor, G major, and B minor. I'm actually excited for you because this had a huge impact on my playing. Arpeggios are fantastic, but if you want to get the most out of them, you need to know your minor and major scale all across the fretboard. Well, that video can show you that in a 2-minute warm-up. Guys, I appreciate you watching the whole thing till the end. Cheers.